I only became aware of the Para-Equestrian component of the Paralympics 4 years ago when I was on assignment as a journalist. I headed out to Chicago to the Nationals for the U.S. Para-Equestrian group that was looking to pick a team to go to the World Equestrian Games in Kentucky. And it absolutely blew my mind what people were doing with disabilities on horses. And even though I had been riding myself in the Hunters, I had really no idea about the magic of dressage and how actually being disabled is a good thing in a way for dressage, because the more subtle aids for horses and the absolute beauty of the sport really took me over. So I was lucky enough to go to London this summer and see the best in the world, and it was not only the dressage and the riding, but the entire atmosphere of the event. London got it right on so many levels. They really put out a welcome mat to embracing difference. Everywhere from the airport when we landed to get our credentials, to my taxi drivers, to the underground. They had billboards displaying disabled athletes all over the town. And it really put a spotlight on disability and achievement. And this year there was upwards of 4,200 athletes competing in 20 different sports. And these were sports I had never heard of. Wheelchair fencing, rugby, sitting volleyball. It was amazing. And there was just a very great palpable power in that acceptance from everyone. The volunteers were amazing also. And they went out of their way to hire disabled reporters and broadcasters, and it's really a misnomer because they weren't disabled at all. They were perfectly capable of doing their jobs. So I'm going to start the slideshow now, and hopefully this works. Yes. I have a few things cut off on my text on the top, but I think that won't be a problem. There were at the Para-Dressage or 78 riders from 26 countries. And some of the small details that London really got right was where they awarded the same identical medals that were handed out at the Olympics were also the same medals handed out at the Paralympics. And I don't have a lot of text, but I want to just run down a brief history that Denmark's Liz Hartel was one of the first disabled riders to ride in the able-bodied Olympic Games, and she scored 2 silver medals in 1952 and 1956 after she had contracted polio and was unable to walk without crutches. She then went home and created Europe's first therapeutic riding center in Denmark. Para-dressage competitions began in the 70s in Scandinavia, mostly I think due to her influence, and in Great Britain. 1987 in Sweden held the first world championships for Para-dressage, and those were used on borrowed horses from the host country. In 1996, Atlanta was the first time that Para-dressage debuted, and again using catch riding on drawn and host horses by the U.S. In 2000, Sydney, riders were still catch riding, which is a very different skill set to get on different horses rather than bringing your own. In 2004 in Athens was the first time riders were allowed to bring their own horses. The U.S. did score a silver medal. And in 2008, Hong Kong, the U.S. finished in 14th place. 2010 was a very significant marker because the FEI included Para-dressage as the final 8th discipline in the World Equestrian Games on a level playing field with the other sports. This is a great shot of the arena that was in London. That was the identical arena that able-bodied dressage competed on, and the show jumpers. And it was really a very symmetrical, wonderful symmetry to having London host this event. I see I have a typo here. There was a Dr. Ludwig Gutmann, was a Jewish neurosurgeon who fled Nazi Germany and ended up in Britain at the Stoke Mandeville Hospital. And he initiated rehabbing disabled World War II veterans through sports. His focus was on patients that other people had discarded, mostly with spinal cord injuries. And he started out just having them throw darts, which actually progressed to archery, which he found helped strengthen the back muscles and postures for people in wheelchairs. And archery also provided a sport to compete equally with able-bodied athletes. He organized an archery competition for 16 patients that was held on the same day that London opened the 1948 Olympic Games. So it was pretty amazing that we can go from 16 patients in wheelchairs playing archery to, in 2012, 4,300 athletes in 20 sports. The opening ceremonies I only watched on video because I hadn't landed yet, were extremely dramatic, even on video, to see the diversity of athletes coming into the stadium, walking in wheelchairs, on crutches, accompanied by service dogs. It was really an amazing sight. And to have Stephen Hawking, no less, narrating the opening, talking about limitless possibilities. And the venue in Greenwich Park that was erected for the equestrian sports was also very dramatic. The entire stadium was elevated up off the grass, as they had promised to protect the park's grass. And so it was really amazing to be able to look out from the stands, really just to look at the skyline of London and the Maritime Palace. And it was very spatial, and it did prove to be a challenging atmosphere for some of the horses and the riders to handle that much space. So, and also Para-Dressage is the only equestrian event that is part of the Paralympics. Let's get to the next one. Here is a good view of how the stadium was erected and how it was elevated. And one of the riders, US rider, said her horse actually liked the springy footing, but there was a vibration, and it was, interestingly, center line of the arena was sited on the prime meridian. So I don't know if the magnetic effect had any effect on the horses either, but it was definitely a very electric atmosphere. The riders were saying that they warmed up when the stadium was empty in the morning and could walk the horses to acclimate, and it was no problem. But once the people came, it was an electric atmosphere. The stabling also was all elevated, and thanks to some of the US riders, I got some nice pictures back there. This is our nice setup, and here's one of our US riders, Donna Panessa, who is a grade 1A. I will explain the grades in a little bit, with the chef de keep, Missy Renchhausen. And there's Donna on her horse that is owned by her trainer, Wes Dunham, practicing in the morning, and her accompanied by her support crew. And Para riders, just like the regular dressage riders, do travel with a lot of help. And that's just one extra thing sometimes that Para riders have to think about, their health concerns and different things that they might need. But they're all pretty practiced at traveling when they get to this stage, so it's not a problem at all. And here's a great shot of our team that qualified this year. And again, Missy with Jonathan Wentz from Texas, Dale Dedrick from Michigan, Rebecca Hart from Pennsylvania, and Donna Panessa from New York. And another shot of them out enjoying some of the activities and in the Olympic Village. One of the cool things too about Para-Dressage sport is the diversity in ages. there were at least 10 riders over the age of 45 competing against also with riders. There was 12 riders under the age of 25. So it's a really cool diversity of the grades that show the disabilities, and people from really any age can get into this. Let's see. Here is Rebecca Hart warming up in the morning with the empty stands, and she is our national champion this year. She did start out at therapeutic riding. She was born with familial spastic paraplegia, a genetic disability that causes muscle wasting and lack of control from the waist down. After she had graduated up and gotten into competitive riding, she had her own horse that had to retire that horse as it got older, and this is her trainer's horse that was on loan. And Rebecca has been in school and works for Starbucks, who ended up becoming part of her sponsor to get to London. So that was pretty cool, and she will have pictures of her in competition a little later. And here is Rebecca again with her helper. Alex Hilton is a veteran of helping out. She is a trainer and has traveled with the U.S. team to 3 Paralympics and is the equestrian director at the YMCA in Hilton, Wisconsin. And she was invaluable because she has seen the rise of the quality and level of Para-Dressage over the years, and just has really good insight and was able to help us just feel out what we were doing there, and a good support team. And it certainly takes more than a village to get all the way to the Paralympics, and this is part of the support crews and trainers, riders, discussing what they need to get done and how they're going to do it. Some more little cute shots of Western Rose, Donna's horse, looking a little bored with all the hubbub. And this is Dale Dedrick, our U.S. team member, who went right ahead and got her Olympic rings tattooed on her shoulder. She's pretty dedicated. And this is Dale's horse, Eric, and getting ready for the jog. And of course, pretty much all paras need somebody to jog their horse for them, whether it's a trainer or groom, for obvious reasons, for disability. All horses that compete in para-equestrian do need to be sound enough to pass an FEI jog. And for Dale's horse, her favorite groom, Megan, who traveled over, had the honor of doing the jog with Eric. Kind of a once-in-a-lifetime thrill. And here is a Richter scale that was ridden by Jonathan Wentz and his owner and trainer, Kai Hunt. Seen here jogging him. And there was the quality of horse flesh that we saw from the Europeans in London was very high, but there were several interesting mixes and breeds that were perfectly at home and able to compete at the upper levels, and Richter scale certainly proved it. He's a Shire cross that they found in a backyard in Louisiana and brought along. Here is a shot of the venue on one side, and although it looks partially empty, they had only sold 10,000 tickets a day. They said they really couldn't handle moving 20,000 people that would fill the stands as they had for the regular Olympics. But it actually probably worked in favor of the riders because there was enough of electric atmosphere. I don't know that the horses could have handled a full stadium on all 3 sides. And it was significant that they sold tickets because every Paralympics before this, they had actually given tickets away just to get spectators in. And they did sell out daily, so that was excellent. It was a great, knowledgeable crowd. And it didn't hurt that Britain was had a very strong team. I would like to talk about the different grades now to give you some understanding for those that don't know. All para-equestrians or riders are classified into 5 grades. Grade 1 is most disabled, and that is split into grade 1A and 1D. 1A is a walk only, 1D is a trot. Then we're going to start with grade 4, which is the least disabled and is usually an impairment in 1 or 2 limbs or some visual impairment. You can certainly see by these pictures of these riders and these horses, they are very close to really high-level, able-bodied riding. For example, Sophie Wells, who's from Great Britain, she was born with amniotic band syndrome, a development condition in which fibrous bands of tissue that originate in the amniotic sac encircle and constrict certain areas. In her case, it affects only her hands and ankles. On the right-hand side, Frank Hosner of the Netherlands, he actually severed tendons, nerves, and muscles in his right arm when he fell through some glass. He was an able-bodied rider before, and he wasn't sure he would be able to compete at a high level again, but he has recovered enough, or he is able to be classified as a para-equestrian grade 4. It's obvious that these horses are very high quality, and most of the grade 4 riders regularly compete against able-bodied at a very high level up to Grand Prix. So it's that is just the start of classifying the riders. The classification is based on physical, permanent physical impairment. So it is really not reflective of riding ability. This is grade 4 in the Shell George and Rainland, who did score a gold medal. For example, she broke her left knee in a riding accident and spent over a year recovering in a wheelchair. So she has some measurable disability in her knee. But other than that, she looks pretty awesome on a horse. This is James Dwyer, who rides for Ireland, but he actually trains in Pennsylvania, and he's a pretty well photographed rider just because of his obvious disability. He lost his leg to bone cancer as a teenager and had stopped riding for quite a while. Had tried different an implant in his knee before they took the whole leg, but once his leg was amputated, he got right back on a horse and did try using a prosthetic leg, but said that it really bothered the horse and didn't help him. So he seems to do just fine without it. And so that is James, and very popular rider. Alright, this text was cut off a little bit. This is grade 3. Grade 3 is characterized as usually able to walk without support, moderate unilateral impairment, or moderate impairment in all 4 limbs. It can also be a severe arm impairment, and these riders may need a wheelchair for longer distances due to lack of stamina. Grade 3 is also for people with total loss of sight in both eyes, which is, to me, amazing that any rider can ride a dressage test blind. But we saw this several times. This is Hannah Brenna, and she is the reigning gold medalist. She did suffer a riding accident in 1986 that left her an incomplete paraplegia, and it did happen at a national championship when she was riding. And if you can see, I don't know, you might be able to see the stirrup on her right foot has like a little toe hold. So that's a very small modification that she uses. So it's really hard to tell sometimes for grade 3 and 4 riders that they're disabled at all, because on horseback you can't see it. Grade 3 is an interesting mix of disabilities, and it's an interesting grade because it is walk, trot, canter, but it is all held in the 20 by 40 smaller arena with a lot of transitions. It makes it very difficult, and some people were commenting that the grade 3 riders look more skilled than even the grade 4 that ride in a regular large size arena. This is one of my personal favorites because I also have one arm amputated, and Deb Criddle was a silver medalist, double silver and gold team medalist. She lost her arm and has 50% use of her right leg from a motorcycle accident. And she also had lost her horse due to injury. And 18 months ago, the Diana Trust in England, which was formed to find horses for para-riders in England, bought her this horse. So she only had 18 months to get to know it, but did very, very well. Let's see. And here we can see, yeah, she has very beautiful upright position with her horse. And here's an example of doing a one-handed free walk. In Para-Dressage, only the horse's movements, gaits, and submission, impulsion, and everything that would be judged on a regular dressage test is scored. The rider's position is exempt. And the judges say they want to see a horse walking with its entire body. So, also, judges are there at the Olympic level. There are 5 judges judging each ride. Here's another example of a grade 3 who has one leg also, and coincidentally also another motorcycle accident. In the lower grades, they are allowed, riders can be allowed to use their voice as an aid. I think he's just maybe softly kissing that horse a little bit to go, or whoa, I'm not sure. This is a German rider, Stefan Zebig, who was born without part of his right arm, obviously, but also without part of his right leg. And he does use a prosthetic leg. And it's interesting, he's got modified reins to use with a double bridle. Okay, now we're moving down to grade 2. The grades 3 and 4, of course, are closer to able-bodied riding, and grades 1 and 2 are much closer to therapeutic riding. So I think you guys will see much more familiar body positions and things here. In grade 2 is mainly wheelchair users or those with severe locomotor impairment involving the trunk and with good to mild upper limb function. It can also be those with severe arm impairment and slight leg impairment or severe unilateral impairment. This is I see that somebody is a little bit ahead of my clicking, so I hope that we can get this on the same page. This is Angelica Treder, and she was born without legs and only has 3 fingers on her right hand, and 2 are missing the middle joints. You can see that she uses her wits in place of legs. Here's an example of a little bit of spookiness. Even some of the best riders. Treder is very experienced and has traveled all over the world, and a very, very good rider. And it was very impressive to see a lot of the para-equestrians handling horses that were tense and trying to work it out through the tests. And not a single para-rider fell off, which was pretty amazing because some of the spooks I don't know that I could have sat. Here's Dale Dedrick, our USA rider, who is in grade 2. And Dale does not use any adaptations. Her disability is she suffers from lupus, and because of that resulted in multiple joint deformations. She has muscle weakness and significant heart disease. She actually rides, she has a pacemaker. She has little to no feeling in her hands, and she was an orthopedic surgeon that did have to retire because of that. That she can ride. Well, she was an able-bodied Grand Prix rider before her onset of her disease. And here's a really beautiful picture of her getting her horse really on the bit and going forward. She did have initially a very spooky first couple of days, but her freestyle was just brought it all together. It was amazing. This is Fernanda Athge from Mexico, also a grade 2, who has, I'm not sure what the name of her condition is, but she does have significant weakness in her limbs. And I put this slide in because she was unable to afford to fly her horse from Mexico, and several riders were unable to bring their own horses and had to really plan ahead and try to contact stables and barns in Britain looking for horses. And Fernanda was lucky enough to find a barn that had a schoolmaster that was a nice enough quality that although she couldn't score as high as she would have on her own horse, she was able to score in the 60s, which gave her a qualifying score to reach Normandy, which is the next World Games in 2014. So it takes, I take my hat off to riders that have enough nerves of steel to show a horse they've never shown before in a venue like this. This was another great crowd pleaser. Side saddle, awesome. Barbara Minichi from Belgium. She suffered from cancer from 1996 to 2004 and has non-alpalegia in her left leg and muscle loss in her right leg. So for her, the solution, not being comfortable astride, was to choose side saddle. And she said although her trainer had never taught or ridden side saddle and never taught a Para-rider, they figured it out. And she had bought this horse at 4 years old because she didn't have money for a finished horse. And now the horse is 11, and they were quite successful. She had the highest scores of her career in London, and the crowd just loved it. Here's an example of her free walk. This is a different grade 2. This rider was born with spina bifida, and the horse fits her well. Alright, I see the text is again cut off, so I'm going to read the definition for grade 1A and 1B, are namely wheelchair users with very poor trunk balance and or impairment in all 4 limbs, or no trunk balance and good other limb function, or moderate trunk balance with severe impairment in all 4 limbs. 1D does walk trot, and this is Lee Pearson of Great Britain, who is the winningest gold medal rider from the last 3 Paralympics and World Championships. Lee was born with, I'm not going to be able to pronounce this, arthrogryposis multiplex congenita. Muscles in his arms and legs grew as scar tissue in the womb. So basically, most of his joints, ankles, knees, hips, and wrists and elbows are fused. But, and he was unable to ride a bicycle as a child, and his parents got him the donkey. And that's how he started his career. And of course, heavy favorite, being on home turf. And even Lee had, his horse had a few moments coming out of the arena. So you could really tell that all these riders have spent the time in the saddle because they were able to sit these thukes and handle these horses, and it was just very impressive. Here's our own Rebecca Hart doing a beautiful job in the rain on the first day with her trainer's horse, Lord Luger. She also uses two whips to help her leg function. Okay, this rider, Katja Karjalinian, is from Finland. She is wearing an armband that signifies that she has no sight on that side. And although blind riders would normally be classified as a grade 3, she also has, she had a rare rheumatic disease that not only destroyed her vision, she lost her right eye, but it also severely affects her motor skills, and she uses a wheelchair. So that is why she is a grade 1D. And because of her sight, she does have a collar in the ring with her. There you can see the collar, and you can see her armband. Sometimes blind riders will use collars outside the arena by the letters called living letters, and they will just call out the letter as they go by. Other riders have a collar in the ring. And this was one of the surprise gold medalists from Australia, Joanne Frumoasa. She actually beat out Lee Pearson for the individual gold, and you can see that she is riding without stirrups. Joanne had a very traumatic accident with a horse that she was riding when she went to open a gate, and the gate pulled back, and she was caught between the fence post and gate and the horse, and she basically she said pulled everything in her body, and she now basically lives in a nursing home and needs full-time assistance. I'll show you her here. You can see how disabled her legs are, and she really could barely balance on crutches. She uses a scooter or a little moped. But then I'm going to go back 1 second, because then to see her on the horse, her position is absolutely flawless, and her test also was flawless with a beautiful horse. And it took really the entire country to help get her to the Paralympics, and she said her riding club, her nurses, her community all, banded together to raise money to get the horse and equipment and everything that she needed to get here, and it was well worth the trip. Grade 1D. This was another gold medalist who also beat out Lee Pearson. This rider was an able-bodied event rider who competed for Austria in the 2004 Athens Olympic Games. And 4 years ago, he was injured in an equipment accident. It wasn't anything to do with the horses, but his neck was broken. And he said for 6 months he was completely immobile and could only turn his head. And as soon as he was able to, obviously he's incomplete paraplegia, he is able to walk with a cane that on horseback is extremely wobbly. His balance was all over the place, and yet the horse under him was able to remain true to the test, the figures, and really, really high level, very beautiful test. And everyone knew it was a gold medal test as soon as he finished. Just some of the, there we can see Donna, she was in one of the hardest grades. They were all hard at this point, but even scoring a 70 is not going to get you to the top of the podium. And now we have grade 1A, which is the closest to the therapeutic or adaptive riding, because that is the most disabled. And here we can see Jody Schloss coming out with her crew to get her to the ring. Jody has competed around the world, and her horse is amazing and has a really great walk, which is what you need if if all of your test is a walk. You need a horse that's going to have a great 4-beat walk. Jody was in a car accident in 1996 that left her unable to walk, and she is also unable to speak and uses an electronic voice generator. But it has not stopped her from riding and competing and winning quite a bit. Here is USA's Donna Tanosa. Donna has been in a wheelchair for the last 27 years due to multiple sclerosis, but she has a rare form of that called Dedrick's disease, which also, when she was first in a wheelchair, she did compete in wheelchair tennis at the world level. Shows you how competitive some of these riders are. And when she later developed problems with her diaphragm and had to go on a ventilator, she had to give up the tennis. But when she was able to work out enough to wean herself off the ventilator for an hour a day, she took up dressage and now para-dressage, and she showed her trainer's horse, Western Rose. Here is another 1A from Italy, and she is also was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis at age 19 and uses a wheelchair. And it was interesting because this was a very young horse that she brought, only 7 years old, and she did fairly well, scored in the middle of the pack, and nice to see. And here you can see, even though it's a walk test, it has to be extremely accurate. All the bending, all the straightness, all the figures, every step really counts. And it was amazing because everybody was so mesmerized by these walk tests, and the entire crowd was really on the edges of their seat to see how they would go. Here was another crowd favorite, Geraldine Savage from Ireland. She has a neurological disability affecting her balance and coordination from a viral attack. And this little cob was just awesome, marched around, and the judges rewarded accuracy, rhythm, and just a very pleasant picture that they made. Richard Snikas was from Latvia, the first Latvian rider ever at the Paralympics. And again, he really needed help from his entire community, and Equestrian Federation in Latvia helped send him there. And the horse that he had shown previously had gotten pregnant, so they had to find another horse that was good enough quality to come, and they made it happen. It's really amazing, the determination and how much community a para rider goodwill can be generated, and people really want to be part of the journey. And it really paid off because Richard was fourth in 2 of his tests, which is really an amazing accomplishment. Here he is doing a free walk. And there he is exiting the ring with their trainers, usually grabbing hold of these horses as quickly as they can, just in case. And in grades 1A, 1B, and 2, horses may be escorted to the ring with a friendly horse, a companion horse that will stand nearby just to help calm them. Although a couple of times it was the friendly horses that were acting up from the crowd and not the horses in the ring. There's a friendly horse standing. I have a few pictures of just different adaptations that can give you an idea. It's everything has to be approved by the classifiers for both safety and fairness. That here you can see some Velcro stabilizing this rider's leg. Here is another example of the Velcro, and that's also a little bit of a judgment call, or it has to be discussed because Velcro is going to be a different, 1 inch of Velcro is going to be different for, say, a 90-pound girl as opposed to a 150-pound male rider. Here you can see a saddle that has different blocks on it to help support the rider. And here is a rider in grade 3 that has his own version, his own adapted reins, different loops that he uses. And that's pretty common that riders can use different kinds of looped reins. Here we can see Canadian Ashley stirrup is tethered to her girth. And here I also wanted to show a picture of Loretta Tan from Singapore. She was born with CP and cerebral palsy and is profoundly deaf, and was discovered showing locally in Britain. Her family had moved from Singapore to Britain for educational opportunities, and it took several massive effort between different countries, Germany, England, and Singapore, to get training and find the appropriate horse that she pulled off a silver medal, 2 silver medals actually, and here you can see Singapore. They do have a very strong therapeutic program, but to have a disabled rider succeed at this level meant a lot because disability is not really not very well accepted in most Asian countries. So they felt this was fairly significant for her to achieve this, that you can see the number of people behind her. And really the top 1A rider at this games was Sophie Christensen, also diagnosed with cerebral palsy. And she is severely disabled and rides without stirrups for a better feel. But the quality of the way she can ride and communicate with her horse was really outstanding, and she scored 80s across the board. You can see her horses on the bit and marching every step of the way. A perfect halt. And the crowd, the hometown crowd, was crazy, and I don't think we would ever get dressage enthusiasm like that in this country, at least not yet. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit since I still have some more pictures I do want to show. There was great media coverage. Photographers from all over the world were there, and it really showed the popularity of para-dressage in the rest of the world. Great crowds. A shot of the US. And what I found very moving was the way London organized the awards ceremonies. They had the riders at one end of the ring on the ground as they were, and that really showed disability, made the disability visible, and then the horses were brought out to the riders. Ireland was the first time they had ever assembled a team, took bronze. And there you see Helen patting her horse, Mr. Cool. There's Helen riding. She has such, her disability has progressed so much that she started as a grade 3 rider and is now a grade 1A. There's Germany Team Silver. Horses coming out. And Britain's team gold. So it's really only on the ground that you see how disabled some of these riders are. I want to give a special tribute to our rider Jonathan Wentz, who competed on the U.S. team, was the highest finishing rider for the U.S. And I think he's a great example of where it starts, because he was diagnosed with cerebral palsy at age 3. And obviously this is familiar to all of you, starting in hippotherapy, that he credited with his even being able to walk as he grew. And it doesn't always start with the fancy horses or a lot of money. His mother was a physical therapist and got him started with the Tony's eQuest Therapeutic in Texas is where he started. That his love of competition took him further than most. And there's Jonathan on the right with his mother Tina, and Jonathan competing in Mexico City last year, catch riding. And Jonathan never really, well, he did own one horse that was sold to him for $1, but he never owned any of those horses. They were all loaned and borrowed and donated and sponsored. This is his horse Richter, or his trainer's horse Richter Scale, and last year in 2011 he was the national champion. His dream and goal since he was 12 was to make it to the Paralympics, and he did. Unfortunately, Jonathan passed away 3 weeks after reaching his goal in London, and we are all just really in disbelief that such a young man at age 21 with so much promise to give was taken from us, that we are very happy that he reached his goals and dreams competing in London. This is Jonathan about to enter the ring with his trainer Kai Hunt. I love this picture of Jonathan because you can see the time there in the back, 60 seconds to go in the ring, and he's smiling, like so happy. This is Jonathan entering the ring. I just wanted to pay a special tribute to Jonathan because he was so enthusiastic and inspirational for so many young para riders. He kept up a lot of his journey and adventures on Facebook, and really has helped to open the door for younger disabled riders to have goals and dreams. And that was his final ride on Richter, who was to be retired after these games too. I do have a couple other just pictures of what is possible. This is German rider the Tina Eidzel, who was not at London, but if you can think it up, and you can make it happen. She's got her curb rein to her mouth and her snaffle rein to her stirrup. She, of course, was born without arms, so that is a different adaptation. It's easier, I think, if you don't have to lose something. This is another very popular rider who did not make the Paralympics, didn't have a horse available at this time, who was born without her lower half of her body and rides just unbelievably. She was a double bronze and silver medalist at the World Games in Kentucky. And that brings it back to where it starts in the U.S. And this is a picture from the clinic at Carlisle Academy in Maine this past spring. And they have done at Carlisle a very good job of making bridges between hippotherapy, adaptive riding, sports program, and para, because there are riders that do want to compete. And they have brought in different clinicians and para judges to help educate riders and instructors. Another bridge is getting able-bodied dressage trainers. This is Netta Rosenkrantz out in California, helping with a young rider, Sydney Collier, at a clinic. And that just opens able-bodied eyes to what's going on with Tara and helps Tara get proper training. Here's another rider out from California who fashioned her own saddle and so impressed a judge at a local show that she helped her get to a national show where she borrowed an old past Pan Am horse that was older and did very well. Obviously very athletic. This is just one of my favorite pictures from Florida last year, just the attitude of Tara exemplified. There's really no stopping riders that want to ride, and I like this one. And that is the end of my slides and basically my presentation. The USTEA, United States Para-Equestrian Organization, is www.ustea.org. Has a ton of information and people to contact for anybody that is interested in more information. And I do just want to talk about briefly distinctions in the world of horses, that therapy is most often the first step for people with special needs to get on horseback. And that does not mean teaching riding. I understand that it's therapy. And it isn't until a person is out of therapy that the concept of more sport riding can develop. And that's where we can find more potential Tara riders. And again, I think Carlisle Academy is a great example. We had an example last year in Florida at Vince Ramos, therapeutic barn loaned 2 horses for Tara riders to show. And so I just think that there are a lot of different bridges. For me, there's a lot of room to grow. And for me, the local impact of showing people with disabilities on horseback is huge. I ride with one arm and I have been jumping for 10 years, and I am amazed that people are so amazed. And I think it really goes beyond the horses, that it's a mindset that horses open the doors, that we can open minds by doing this. And the more exposure, I think therapeutic barns and Tara barns, or Tara riders, trainers, that can really help in ongoing education between what is disability and how far people can go with it. Thank you so much. Thanks, Jenny.